...2001 was a monumental year for video games. In many respects, it marks the start of a new era. The embers of an uncertain generation extinguished. The landmarks of the modern console landscape formed. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft. It was here the battleground was set for decades to come. The future had long made bold promises. Now, the future was here, and it was starting to deliver. But first, it was time to say farewell to the Nintendo 64. New games had all but stopped as the console made way for its successor. The only release of note was Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's a 3D platformer with cute characters, but contrary to Rare's earlier kid-friendly fare, it caters more to an adult audience. These days it's regarded as a bit of a cult classic, but it didn't sell very well. The mature rating restricted its potential audience, and the N64 was at the end of its life. The Game Boy Color was more evergreen. Although it too was to be replaced this year, the existence of Pokémon meant that Nintendo's handhelds had greater staying power. Pokémon remained incredibly popular, and Pokémon Gold and Silver were re-released as an enhanced version in Pokémon Crystal. The Legend of Zelda had a double-headed return to the handheld too, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Seasons is action-led, where Ages is driven by puzzles. Completing one grants a code to play an alternate version of the other, ultimately leading to the game's true ending. In March, the Game Boy Color's successor arrived in Japan, and by June had released worldwide. The Game Boy Advance was a significant upgrade, with a 32-bit processor and thousands of on-screen colors. Of course, Mario was an essential part of any lineup for a new Nintendo handheld. Within the first year, there were several available titles. There was Super Mario Advance, a port of Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Advance 2, a port of Super Mario World. The Wario Land series had its fourth installment, with superior graphics on the new hardware. And the Advance also had the first handheld Mario Kart game in Super Circuit, with the hardware now capable of using Mode 7 style scaling. The Advance was the perfect portable home for the colourful console games we'd become accustomed to. Ubisoft gave us Rayman Advance, a faithful port of the PlayStation and Jaguar original. The Klonoa series made its Nintendo debut with Empire of Dreams, a 2D puzzle platformer. And the long-standing Castlevania franchise was present for the Advance's launch with Circle of the Moon. It even had its own version of Doom. It wasn't the best version, but it was the only way to play Doom on a handheld device. The Advance was a much-needed upgrade to the original Game Boy. It wasn't perfect, it lacked a backlight, making it hard to play at times. But they must have done something right. Launch sales were strong. Perhaps Nintendo were back on track for the next generation. Meanwhile, the original PlayStation was enjoying the sunset of a hard-won generation. While the PS2 now stole most focus, there were still echoes of greatness on the old machine. A few sequels trickled out. Siphon Filter 3 marked the last in the series for the PS1. And Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix was a stylish, cel-shaded prequel. The PlayStation was a great place for RPG fans, and Final Fantasy Chronicles bundled enhanced versions of SNES classics Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. By now, many had already upgraded to the PS2, which meant that the older hardware was handed down to younger siblings. So while mainline releases slowed, there was an uptick in titles appealing to a younger generation. Big license names with simple games. Toy Story Racer, Goofy's Funhouse, Looney Tunes Sheep Raider. Nothing particularly groundbreaking, and if you were cynical, you could describe it as shovelware. But for some, this was peak childhood. Sega were struggling. They had gambled everything on the Dreamcast success. They invested heavily in development, advertising, and sold hardware at a discounted price. But they had failed to meet the necessary goals for survival. In March 2001, Sega announced a $417 million loss, and their withdrawal from the console market was inevitable. It was probably a bad time to launch a new franchise on the Dreamcast, but there are a couple of original games that emerged this late. Ooga Booga was a party game, lightweight but ideal for couch multiplayer. Headhunter was a third-person cover shooter with some motorcycle racing sections. Both were received well, but ultimately doomed to obscurity. A flurry of sequels came out this year. Virtua Tennis 2, Sega Bass Fishing 2, Crazy Taxi got another outing. The technical investment was already made, so sequels were an easy win. Sonic Adventure 2 was made with a downsized team a tenth of the size of the original, but it still managed to introduce Shadow the Hedgehog. Shenmue 2 was developed alongside the original, which goes some way to explaining why, at the time, Shenmue was the most expensive game ever developed. The sequel maintains the impressive scope of the original in Hong Kong this time. An open world with time progression, weather, an ambitious life simulator with an unusually alive world. Arcade ports were easy and plentiful. Outside the arcade, the Dreamcast was the only way you could play shooters like Gigawing 2, Zero Gunner 2, or Out-Trigger. The arcades were fading in relevancy. The glory days of Street Fighter 2 had long passed. But arcade fighting games always have a certain draw. The Dreamcast had ports of Capcom vs SNK 2, Fighting Vipers 2, and Garu, Mark of the Wolves. So the Dreamcast was a great place for arcade ports, but with its built-in modem, it was also the best console for online play. Like the PS2, the Dreamcast had a port of Unreal Tournament. But unlike the PS2, with the Dreamcast you could take your skills online. Worms World Party was a rejigged version of Armageddon, tailored for online play. Bomberman Online brought its chaotic multiplayer to a broader stage. And then there was Phantasy Star Online, the first online role-playing game for consoles. Sadly, the Dreamcast's unique strengths and strong library were not enough to save it. Remaining stock was sold off for a bargain price, ongoing support pledged. But the Dreamcast was dead, and an era had ended. This didn't mean the death of Sega, though. Their games continued, but they pivoted to third-party publishing instead. This did mean the unthinkable happened. Sonic games on a Nintendo console. The Game Boy Advance got its own version of Sonic, and Sonic Adventure 2 was ported to the GameCube with new multiplayer modes. Sega also brought Dreamcast exclusives to other platforms. Crazy Taxi came to the GameCube and PS2, and the trippy visuals of Rez arrived on the PS2 this year as well. From a third-party perspective, it doesn't make much sense to limit yourself to one platform. Console exclusives only benefit the platform owner. The PlayStation 2 was dominant, but as long as its rivals offered similar ability, third-party games were likely to see cross-platform release. The Simpsons Road Rage appeared on most major platforms. A game with a startling similarity to Crazy Taxi, albeit with a cast of recognizable characters. And of course, EA's annual sports games were ever present. FIFA, Madden, NHL. You know the score. New roster, new cover. One major trend in the world of sports games was the meteoric rise of extreme sports. Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder and its sequel had sold like hotcakes. Activision were keen to repeat this success, and many imitators sought a slice of the same pie. Not that anyone really minded. The Tony Hawk games were great, and depending on who you ask, they reached their peak with Tony Hawk 3. Activision expanded the formula to bikes with Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX. This was a direct competitor to Acclaim's Dave Mirra series, who also released a sequel this year. Snowboarding was another popular virtual pursuit. Activision's effort was Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. The Xbox had amped freestyle snowboarding. The best of the snowboarding bunch was SSX Tricky, with its frantic downhill action punctuated with improbable tricks and colourful characters. There was even Razor Freestyle Scooter for the ultimate in shin-smashing action. An odd confluence of jet ski games came out this year too. There was Wave Rally from Eidos, Splashdown from Atari. The GameCube received a sequel to Wave Race 64 with Wave Race Blue Storm. No matter which console you had a healthy mix of first-party exclusives with cross-platform third-party games. But there was one platform that didn't really feel this benefit. PC gaming was not in the greatest state. The attention lavished upon the PS2 made the PC market look unprofitable by comparison. Displays were shunted to the back of stores, and PC-exclusive AAA titles were largely dead. Many PC games were ported over to the consoles. Shooters like Half-Life, Quake 3, and Soldier of Fortune. Baldur's Gate had a console-focused spin-off in Dark Alliance. The potential audience of the console market is too good to ignore. Max Payne is a third-person shooter with a distinctly noir aesthetic. Its gameplay is heavily influenced by the likes of John Woo and The Matrix, with bullet time playing a central role. It was developed primarily for the PC, but was ported to the consoles as well. The console versions outsold the PC version by a significant margin. PC games retreated to their core genres. FPS was always a PC staple, and they remained popular. Return to Castle Wolfenstein wasn't as revolutionary as Wolfenstein 3D, but an enjoyable Nazi-slaying romp nonetheless. The multiplayer was excellent too. Aliens vs. Predator 2 was the sequel to 1999's AVP. 3 radically different campaigns, tension, atmosphere, and action in spades. Undying was an occult FPS from the mind of horror writer Clive Barker. Serious Sam, The First Encounter, was the first of the decidedly unserious Serious Sam games. Fans of more tactical shooters were catered for by the likes of Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, the first of the long-standing series. Bohemia Interactive gave us Operation Flashpoint, acclaimed for its realistic military simulation, and the groundwork for the Armor series. Strategy was another core genre. The mouse controls and presentation detail necessary are more at home on the PC. There was a new entry in the Civilization series, Civ 3. A tall order living up to the near-perfect Civ 2, but the sequel brought some fresh ideas, such as the introduction of culture. In a similar vein was Paradox's Europa Universalis 2, a detailed grand strategy game with a strong focus on history. Peter Molyneux's new studio, Lionhead, released their first game, the overhyped but adequately delivered Black and White. A god game in the truest sense, you exist only as a disembodied hand. A trainable creature serves as your avatar, notable for its impressive AI and touches of humour throughout. Simulations of various sorts were also popular. Ex-Bullfrogger's Mucky Foot released Startopia, an unusual business sim where you develop space stations for a variety of alien visitors. Microsoft's Zoo Tycoon put you in charge of designing habitats and adopting animals. In Tropico, you are El Presidente of a banana republic, balancing the welfare of your citizens with money-making opportunities. The realm of big-budget adventure games was quite barren at this point. LucasArts' recent departure from the genre had left a void. The biggest adventure game this year was Myst 3 Exile, pre-rendered fantasy environments with mysterious contraptions and fiendish puzzles. Another genre unique to PC are flight sims. IL-2 Sturmovik was a highlight for fans of historical air combat. With its massive variety of World War II aircraft and scenarios, it was hailed as one of the best flight simulators of all time. Massively multiplayer online RPGs were growing in popularity, fueled by the likes of EverQuest and Asheron's Call. 2001 saw the launch of Dark Age of Camelot. Jagex also launched RuneScape. Originally a browser game written in Java. More accessible than most, its graphics were simple and gameplay basic, but it had a charm like no other. Offline, classic CRPG series Wizardry returned with Wizardry 8, traditional party-led, turn-based combat. German developers Piranha Bytes released Gothic, an innovative but flawed action RPG with an open world. It was massively popular in its native market and had a cult appeal elsewhere. Ion Storm's Anachronox finally made it out of development hell, releasing after years of delay. Directed by Tom Hall of id Software fame, it's set in a cyberpunk world with JRPG-style combat. Hugely ambitious, fantastic execution, complete commercial failure. The PC games market was tough. While some titles sold millions, many more struggled. But no platform is as flexible or freer than the PC. Change was in the air, and digital distribution was on the horizon. Stardock introduced Stardock Central, a content delivery platform for their games and software. Over the next few years, this would become the standard for PC games. The traditional retail model was becoming obsolete. Meanwhile, the PlayStation 2 was starting to realize its potential. It didn't have the smoothest of launches. Demand was very high, but stock levels couldn't keep up. Sony were having supply issues. The complement of launch games was underwhelming. Developers were complaining that the system was difficult to program. Software attachment rates were poor, as some were using the PS2 as a DVD player. But none of this mattered. Sony were selling PS2s as quickly as they could make them. And the confidence wasn't misplaced. 2001 was a spectacular year for PlayStation 2 games. Grand Theft Auto 3 had arrived. Rockstar's crime-fueled city sandbox had at long last entered the 3D realm. Set in a virtual New York, Liberty City, silent protagonist Claude embarks on a violent campaign of revenge. Others had already attempted 3D open worlds, but nobody had accomplished it as expertly as GTA did. It was dark, it was moody, it had character, it had ambition. And for now, it was only available on PS2. Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty was a hugely anticipated sequel. Produced by auteur Hideo Kojima, its detailed tactical stealth gameplay set amidst complex plot. It was slick, political, and artful. It was a demonstration of both the PS2's technical abilities and what video games could be. Eco was a game of a unique, desolate beauty. Truly ahead of its time, least of all for its prolific use of bloom. Its design by subtraction ethos led to a deeply minimalist experience. This was at a time when games were extreme, when more was more. And instead, it showed that games can be implicit, HUDless, serene. Horror fog-em-up Silent Hill 2 offered an excellent slice of survival terror. Atmospheric, scary, and with memorable monster design. Final Fantasy X brought the popular JRPG series into the next gen, integrating 3D environments for the first time in the series. The stylish and fiendishly difficult Devil May Cry took frenzied combo-driven combat to new heights. Naughty Dog of Crash Bandicoot fame were bought by Sony and became a first-party studio. Their first game on the PS2 was Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, a colourful open-world platformer. Polyphony Digital delivered the definitive driving simulator, Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. No other racing game could compete with the depth and variety of cars and circuits on offer. The PlayStation roster was stacked with hits, not to mention all the cross-platform third-party games. After a year like this, any doubts about the PS2's launch dissolved. This was the platform to have. Honestly, who could hope to compete with such a lineup? So Nintendo released a new console this year. The GameCube launched in September in Japan, November in North America, Europe the following year. It was cheaper than the PS2, $199 instead of $299. But still, the competition was tough. There was no Mario title on launch either, although Luigi did get his time in the spotlight with Luigi's Mansion. It's essentially a family-friendly survival horror game. A haunted house full of ghosts, who must be stunned with a flashlight and captured with a vacuum cleaner. Following shortly after, within the launch window, was Super Smash Bros. Melee, sequel to the party fighting game with an all-star roster of Nintendo characters. Melee's multiplayer was excellent, the quintessential couch multiplayer experience. Easy to pick up for casual play, but with a surprising depth that lent itself well to competitive play. Graphically, the GameCube was quite capable compared to its peers, perhaps the last Nintendo platform to attain such parity. Games like Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 brought the wow factor. It showed what the system was capable of, and compares quite favourably to the best-looking PS2 titles. The GameCube also had a number of new franchises that made their debut on the platform, one of which was Pikmin, a puzzle game where you must command groups of diminutive creatures to recover parts for your spaceship. Sega also gave us Super Monkey Ball, an arcade port that was destined for the Dreamcast until its untimely end. Overall, the GameCube was lean on games, but big on names, such as the Nintendo Way. It didn't have much hope of competing against the PS2, but with its cheaper price point and quality exclusives, the GameCube had at least carved out a niche. It's hard to call it a success, but Nintendo lived to fight another generation. Meanwhile, a new contender had arrived. In the gap left by Sega's departure, Microsoft had spotted an opportunity to get ahead of the threat posed by the PS2. Microsoft's console, their DirectX box, was designed for a convergent future. It was internet-ready, it had a hard disk with gigabytes of storage. It was a computer for the living room, a multifunction multimedia machine disguised as a games console. Microsoft had a strong financial position thanks to their near monopoly on the desktop. They had deeper pockets than Sony and Nintendo. They'd need it. Launching a new console is always a risky move, but to compete against the PS2 would require serious investment. When the Xbox launched in November 2001, Microsoft were losing $125 for every console sold. And they sold 1 million in just 3 weeks. Add to that the cost of marketing, development, and securing games, Microsoft were making a $1 billion bet with the Xbox. To even stand a chance against the PS2, Microsoft were going to have to attract developers to the Xbox. They had some advantages here. The Xbox's DirectX APIs meant that the transition from Windows development was relatively painless. Games like Oddworld, Munchie's Odyssey found their home on the Xbox for this reason. It was the devs' first foray into 3D graphics, and they described the PS2 as having an unfriendly development environment. Bizarre Creations weren't in the best position after the release of Metropolis Street Racer. It was late, over budget, and the Dreamcast was kaput. So when approached by Microsoft to port MSR to the Xbox, it wasn't a hard choice. The result was Project Gotham Racing, an evolution of MSR with the kudos mechanic and realistic city circuits retained. It was the Xbox's flagship racer, a viable rival to the prestigious Gran Turismo. Some developers were swayed by the Xbox's superior hardware, along with financial incentives from Microsoft. Team Ninja developed Dead or Alive 3 exclusively for the Xbox, a 3D fighting game that showcased the Xbox's graphical prowess. Behind the scenes, Microsoft were working on their upcoming online service. The future was in online play after all. But as a concession to couch co-op, every console needs at least one party game. Fusion Frenzy filled that role for the Xbox's launch. 4-player action across a variety of minigames. The Xbox exclusives were filled out by an array of third-party games. Microsoft had the backing of EA and Activision, so there was no shortage of sports or skateboarding for the new console. That being said, the complement of launch games for the Xbox were few in number and lacking real standouts. To really establish the console, Microsoft were going to need something special. Bungie were the champions of Mac games development. Admittedly a low bar to clear, but Marathon and Myst were cream of the Macintosh crop. They unveiled a game called Halo at Macworld 99. Large-scale sci-fi combat, huge worlds with natural terrain. It looked great, but financially they were struggling. Desperately seeking solutions, they reached out to Microsoft. In June 2000, Microsoft acquired Bungie. Apple's loss was Microsoft's gain. they had secured another launch exclusive for their Xbox. Halo had a quiet majesty. Its alien landscapes were eerily beautiful, punctuated with a laconic hero and intense combat. More importantly, it was good. Polished, balanced, beautiful, detailed. It had a compelling story and great multiplayer. It set a new standard for console FPS games that made every prior attempt feel primitive. It was a system seller. Without it, the Xbox may not have survived. But it did, held aloft by a handful of games and a huge pile of money. And so the console trinity was complete. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, an arrangement that stands to this day. The fates of each would wax and wane, but for now, Sony were firmly in control. This is a time when consoles were dominant. Mobile gaming was still primitive, casual games yet to explode. PC gaming may have been going through a difficult transition, but the platform itself was more relevant than ever. After all, it's where the internet was. Windows XP launched this year, a welcome respite from the horrors of ME and a worthy upgrade for Windows 98. Its blue and green interface with the calming hills of bliss would soon become a familiar sight. Apple continued clawing back their way to relevancy with the release of OS X. With it came iTunes and, perhaps more importantly, the iPod. MP3 players were already a thing, but they were generally low capacity and lacked a certain glamour. The iPod put 1,000 songs in your pocket in a compact, stylish package. It made MP3 players cool. We entered the new millennium with a certain wonder and hope. It was a colourful optimism from the 90s, fused with cool new technology. And for the most part, things were going great. Until suddenly they weren't. I suppose this is where I say something like 9/11 changed everything. I'm not sure it did, but it set us on a darker course. The war on terror had officially begun. America plunged into Afghanistan on a retaliatory crusade, a forecast for an unending war against an unseen enemy. Anthrax attacks, increased surveillance in the name of patriotism, 24-hour news drip-feeding paranoia. This was the future, and we were scared. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.